versus Shidou, a topic between two very impulsive strikers with a very bad attitude. Honestly, this topic has been something circulating around the community due to the fact that both of these strikers have very compelling playstyles and they've been put into very annoying arguments between each other. And I think both interpretations that I've seen of these two characters against each other have been completely wrong and somewhat idiotic, personally, I'd say, right? And I'm just here to kind of give my say on it and my truth to the topic. And I think I've built enough logic to see why the player in question that wins, right? So, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Let's get right into the video and let me present you guys with Barou versus Shidou. Barou and Shidou are both top tier physical players. Their physical prowess and abilities usually help in creating the chances and opportunities for them to score goals. Of course, this is to a different degree and angle for both of them, but let me explain. So first, going over how Shidou uses his physicality to assist him in scoring aerial goals or make goals from impossible stances, it is less catered to his physical strength and more his overall prowess and athleticism. While Barou, on the other hand, is the polar opposite, a player without any real airtime and a player whose physicality is more catered to his physical strength than anything like his jumping ability or speed. It's been consistent in the series that Barou is one of the most, if not the best, at his physical power. Barou has been capable of breaking past most blue lock players, and even in the U20 game has one of the best feats to date, dragging two U20 defenders that are holding onto him and trying to stop him, and he still managed to score a goal. Now, Shidou technically has a similar play with two players being on him while he's scoring a header, but it definitely isn't to the same degree that the U20 players are holding him at. Kunigami also having to guard Shidou is also a testament to his physicality, but I do still think Barou is just a physically more dominant player, and it gets him more goals than Shidou does at a more consistent rate as well. So I'd give this point to Barou for how strong he is and how he uses it, but I do think Shidou's jumping is on the same level as Barou's strength, but I don't think it's better than his strength. Now, when it comes to dribbling, it's a bit one-sided. Shidou is usually a player that relies on his passer or a pass in general to do most of his incredible things. Shidou is not the type of player to dribble past his opponents to get around him. The only feat he has is dribbling past Igaguri, which at this point isn't even a threat on the field after he lost his purpose against Run. So it's not an insane feat, while Barou, on the other hand, fun fact, has never lost a chop feint dribble. It's one of the most consistent techniques in the series and has a 100% succession rate. Even in the NEO, in his most recent showings, he uses his chop feint on Isagi and Grim, and even taking his chop feints aside, we've seen Barou flick over Nest like he's nothing. The same Nest that was capable of stealing the ball from early Bachira, which I still think is pretty impressive, but clearly there's no need for me to keep going. I'm pretty sure everyone would agree Barou takes this. Now on to shooting, which I feel like is the most important point in this video since both of these two players are considered some of the best strikers in the U20 bracket. But to keep it simple and easy to follow, it is really an argument about impossibility versus consistency. Let me explain further. So Shidou is a player that has multiple showings of being able to make impossible goals that no one else can make. Shidou has a unique ability that also increases his spatial awareness when he reaches the penalty area to the extreme point, where he can make a goal without looking at the post. This ability is the key to his scoring ability for the most part. It makes him a formidable striker with top-class individual skills. But I do want to note to everyone that Shidou is always at a higher advantage when it comes to who he's partnered with. For example, most of his successful feats have been done when he has a world-class passer in his corner, which for me at least waters his feats down to him always relying on who his passer was. Now, speaking on Barou's shooting skills are very different than Shidou's. Barou relies on his middle shot, which is usually taken right outside of the penalty box, making Barou more of a long-range shooter. Barou has also acquired the world-class eye, Predator's Eye, which has allowed him to acquire an extreme level of spatial awareness that is the polar opposite of metavision. This allows him to shoot and angle his shot in tighter spots. This is done to such an extreme degree that he's capable of shooting in between Kaiser and Isagi's legs and scoring. Barou's shooting in the Neo Egos League is also more calculated, and he uses designs to accomplish his goals. In the middle of the Neo Egos League, he was capable of surpassing Snuffy's design with his double nutmeg shot, Although I do think when it comes to the penalty area shooting, Shidou takes it. But when it comes to longer range shooting, Barou is definitely better. Although the deal breaker for this is their consistency and versatility, since I do think Barou is far more consistent and relies more on his own skills than the quality of his passer. So personally, I'd give this one to Barou. I think there's enough evidence to prove why he is the overall better striker and more reliable one. To just further prove this point, we are aware that Loki himself states that Shidou needs to shoot less and missed a handful of his shots against Spain. Barou and Shidou are two players that both aren't ones to always logically think things through and are some of the most unpredictable characters in the series, although I do think Shidou's field IQ is underrated in a sense. I think his field IQ is horrible only when he's not in the penalty area. Since I do think Shidou's body and mind usually move off impulse and pleasure than thinking things through. I think his field IQ and decision making go up in the penalty area, but in Barou's case, his field IQ has evolved enough to understand and execute Snuffy's designs at a world-class level, and was even capable of thinking and creating a design that surpasses even Snuffy. It's also stated in itself that Barou was able to outwit all of Ubers in general, so I think it's clear he takes field intelligence over Shidou. Now, speaking of vision, I'm going to not waste any time with this and just give it to Barou due to the showcase of how he uses Predator's Eye and how effective it is against Bastard. I think it's in a testament of its own and also better than anything Shidou has showcased. Now, I will say there are some people under the speculation that Shidou has Predator's Eye, but I truly just think that's his normal eye design. I think to say he has Predator's Eye isn't impossible, but there's also not any explicit evidence to prove this besides his normal eyes looking like Predator's Eye. When we talk about offense, I do want to clarify we are comparing their whole kits against each other. I do the same thing for the defensive point as well, so moving on, I'll go over Shidou's kit first, which is his overwhelming physicality to score goals and his extreme spatial awareness to score goals, and his off-the-ball movement when it comes to getting around defenders. Shidou does have moderate dribbling, his only feat being able to dribble past Ikaguri, which isn't really saying much. The weakest link in Shidou's kit would definitely be his passing and ball movement due to his mentality only fixing itself when he was forced to team up with Ren. Barou, on the other hand, going over his kit, he has the overwhelming physicality to use to bruise past defenders with his charge. Barou has a middle shot and his stealth kill shot and the double nutmeg shot, which I personally think is replicable if the right conditions are met. Barou as well has the Predator's Eye and feint chop dribbling, and his passing and defense are above average, being able to run combinations and keep up with everyone on Ubers, along with being able to block Isagi and Kaiser's bungle shot. When you take in the entire picture, I'm pretty sure it's clear Barou has the wider and better kit, and if you don't think so, you are entitled to your own opinion, and I respect that, but I do think you're wrong unless you provide a very well thought out argument. Now, we are down to feats and statements, which besides Isagi saying that Shidou was the piece that interrupted that power balance between him, Kaiser, and Isagi, and his reflex goal with Charles, but even prior to Barou's game against Bastard, Snuffy was already hyping him up to be a top-class striker, not just in Blue Lock, but in the entire Neo Eagles League. Snuffy in this scan is talking about Barou's mind and specs, and in another scan, Noah calls him the best striker in the U20 category when it comes to temperament, which can also be interpreted as nature. Now, although I deem Reflex as a very top-tier feat, I do think most of this is Charles's feat, and even if I didn't think that, I do think the double nutmeg is harder in difficulty and skill given the situation he was in. Now, we are coming into the closing end of the video, and it's time for that final question of who wins. Now, by now, if you've watched up until this point, I'm assuming you can already tell that Barou is the clear winner in regard to a dueling scenario and overall look. My reasoning behind this, after logic I already gave in a short explanation, is that Barou is a better overall player, not being just a striker that scores goals, but much more than that, as I've proven, while Shidou is more one-dimensional and only good at penalty scoring, while the rest of his specs are impressive, but not on Barou's level. Now, speaking of a head-on-head duel, I do think even with Shidou's overwhelming physicality, there's no way for him to fully stop Barou's charge, and even then, we've seen Barou shoot with players on him, and even without that, he still has his feint chop to rely on. Shidou, on the other hand, without a world-class passer, I'm not sure how good he'll be against Barou when he has to rely on his dribbling techniques or skills to shoot on his own or get into a comfortable spot with a passer without a passer in his midst. It just doesn't look good for Shidou, and the advantages are definitely in Barou's favor. And no, I don't think it's really close at all. I think the winner is very clear, and that winner is Barou. Now, if you were able to get to the end of the video, I appreciate that for the support, and I hope you guys liked the video and you all agree with me, but I would love to hear your opinions and arguments in the comments. If you like this video, I do content like this every single few days, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.